Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Why Relationships Matter in the Innovation Economy, a podcast from Goodie Nation. My name is Casey, and I am the podcast manager here at Goodie Nation. For those of you who don't know, we are an organization that exists to help bridge the relationship gap for so many deserving founders. These are founders from underrepresented populations, founders in the social entrepreneurship sector, folks who may not always readily have access to the resources and the tools that they need in order to succeed in their journeys. And so we do this show in order to highlight not only the amazing founders who are in the Goodie Nation community, but the amazing mentors, donors, VCs, the folks who support us and whose work that we think is incredibly important in the innovation space. And so on today's episode, we actually have one of our very special guests. Everyone's a special guest, but we have one of our Goodie Nation board members who we are so excited to talk to and introduce you to. So first of all, Shay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And so to kick it off with our classic Goodie Nation question, I would love for you to share your origin story. How did you end up where you are right now?
Oh, I'm sure everyone has told you it's not a straight road. I've always known that I wanted to be an attorney. However, I did not realize that I would end up being an entertainment attorney. So I was always on a pathway to law school, but I was actually really focused on international law, international humanitarian law, with a focus on economic justice. So social justice, humanitarian issues, just general things that impact us as a global community have always been close to my heart and what I thought that I would be doing professionally as an attorney. However, in the middle of law school, there were several different twists and turns in my journey. And one of those was taking a class called The Business of Baseball. And I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I returned to Cleveland for law school at Case Western Reserve University. And it just so happened to be during the first LeBron era. So there was definitely a great energy in the city around sports and athletes, and the particular professors who taught the class were at the agency that LeBron was at the time. And so, in addition to the business of baseball, they taught a class called Representing the Individual Athlete, where we got into endorsement contracts and different transactions in entertainment. I moved on to take more classes of that sort. And kind of on the theme of why relationships matter, a lot of relationships that I had from undergrad. I went to Hampton University, which is in Hampton, Virginia, near Virginia Beach. And at the time that I was in school and even coming through law school, it was a huge time for Virginia music with Pharrell and the Clips and Timbaland and Missy and Chris Brown and all this really great Virginia talent. And so a lot of people that I went to undergrad with were in the entertainment industry as I was coming out of school, along with the fact that I come from a musical family. And so all of those things combined led me to where I am today in the entertainment space. And so I always say I'm an IP and entertainment attorney because one of the things that I realized in doing deals for my clients is that one of the most important things in understanding leverage is ownership of your underlying ideas, ownership of your creative works, ownership of your innovations, whether it's a technology or a song or, a show concept. IP is at the heart of all of it. And so my practice focuses both on IP and entertainment because I really want to empower my clients to have the strongest deal possible and position themselves for longevity.
So I am even more excited to be talking to a fellow pirate on this episode. That's why we do this. You never know the connections that you'll have with someone who is a complete stranger 5 minutes ago. So that's amazing. So I'm curious to know more about your day to day. You mentioned you work with clients. How does your involvement in the law and the entertainment space kind of include relationships, whether that's with clients, whether that's with mentors or peers, or having to interact with with companies or other attorneys. Is your sort of like daily relationship building skills tested?
Oh, the entertainment industry is completely about relationships on so many levels. One of the top questions that I get from aspiring entertainment attorneys or individuals who might want to pivot from one sector of the law over to entertainment, one of the key questions that I get is, how did you break in? How did you get your client base? And obviously, it was something that I was really interested in as I was building my firm. And so that's the first place where relationships matter, because your ability to build relationships with creatives across the board. My clients go from agency clients all the way to people in sports and social influence and app builders, and just having relationships with all of them, making them know that they're heard, that they're understood, making the law and especially intellectual property a little less scary, goes an extremely long way. A large portion of my business at this juncture is referrals due to the relationships that I've built. And, something that I mentioned during my origin story is that due to a lot of the relationships that I have with individuals in undergrad, I would say that close to 30% of my business comes from fellow Hamptonians, whether it is me working with them directly or via a referral from them. And so relationships are absolutely everything. And then even when you are negotiating across the table, a common fallacy of young lawyers in mindset is coming with this very adversarial tone to negotiations. And one of the best ways to get deals done is by building allies across the table and having great relationships with those that you are across the table from, because it makes sure that the deal goes a lot smoother, a lot faster, and in most circumstances, both of your clients are really happy with the outcome.
So that's such like just insight on the different ways that relationships matter for your day to day. And I'm curious, for folks who work in entertainment, there are, especially in the beginning, sometimes instances where like you're maybe working with a partner on a project, or you're just working with folks and you're like, oh, we don't really have to worry about like getting things down on paper now because we're not making money or we're not doing anything. So one day maybe we will need to figure that part out. But yeah, right now let's just like make our work, make our art. I'm wondering, do you have any advice for creatives who are in working relationships with other creatives, when it comes to maybe thinking about some of the legal things that they may want to consider as they're building their working relationships?
Absolutely. And I wouldn't just narrow it down to creatives. I would say any people working together in a business setting. If we think about movies that we've all seen, like The Social Network or The Founder, right? It comes back to IP, it comes back to underlying agreements amongst friends who are building things. And a few of the things that I constantly say are, everyone is friends until money gets involved. So it is ideal to have an agreement in place while everyone is still friends and things are going well, about how things will work, who is responsible for what happens if someone no longer wants to be a part of the business but they were integral at the beginning, how will money be split. All of those things are really key to discuss on the front end, because it's a lot easier and I think a lot fairer, as opposed to when the situation arises and you're negotiating in hindsight. And the other thing that I say is that if it's enough money to be upset about, you should have it in writing. You should have a contract. And so when we think about investing, don't think about investment just as the financial investment into the business, but at the point that you are investing your time, your energy away from other things that could be revenue generating for you, you probably want to get it in paper. So at the point that you start seriously investing in something, whether it is financially or time wise, you should definitely consider engaging an attorney to even get just a basic memorandum of understanding or of intent in place, even if you don't go into a full fledged formal long form agreement.
That is some amazing wisdom that will hopefully help somebody out who is listening to this. And speaking of wisdom and insight that you provide, I would like to know how you ended up becoming a part of the board of Goodie Nation. I mean, clearly your guidance is helpful to the organization, but I just want to know, like, how did you find Goodie Nation, and why is it important for you to help serve on this organization?
Oh, such a great question. Joey and I go way, way back. Gosh, for years. And so at the very beginning, when Joey moved from teachers therapy to founders therapy and then over to the ideation hackathons, it was something that I knew I wanted to be engaged with. And so from those first ideation hackathons, I came and participated as a coach slash mentor, helping on the IP side of things and just really being in the mix. Had the opportunity to work with startups like Gooder at the very beginning, literally at those first sessions. So I've always been around Goodie Nation. I've always been deeply, deeply impressed and um, just I just think motivated by how awesome the mission is to say, how can we take tech founders? How can we take non-technical founders and utilize our mindsets for the greater good to solve social issues? And then how can we position these individuals for success when they might not have the opportunities that others have? And so it's just always been a great opportunity whenever I can to participate. It transitioned into actually helping Goodie Nation itself secure its intellectual property. With their Goodie Nation and Amplify for Good trademarks. And so just becoming a part of the board is what I feel is a natural transition in my involvement with Goodie Nation as it grows and matures and evolves and continues to expand, both as an organization, but in its impact on a global level. It just felt like a natural transition. I'm really excited to be on the board and look forward to all the work that Goodie Nation will do.
That's amazing. Now we're getting the origin story of the Goodie Nation being trademarked. There you go. Who knew? Who knew?
It's me.
So it was you. It was you. So my final question for you, you've talked a lot about the ways that relationship building is important for your work, why work folks who are in entrepreneurship, in creative fields, not in creative fields, why being mindful of the law and their relationships is important. And so I was wondering if you had any closing thoughts or closing words on, as we professionals are trying to balance all the things, why is it still important for us to build genuine relationships in our respective fields?
Relationships matter because you can do it all, but you can't do it all alone. Inevitably, for every dream, for every plan, it will involve more than you. And when you have solid relationships and individuals that you can turn to, whether it's for advice, investment, just even a dumping board to be able to vent. All of those different kinds of relationships matter in every arena of life. There is no building of a family, there's no building of a business, there's no building of a dream without having relationships in place from every single aspect. And so I just think that really genuinely understanding the value of the connections that we have with each other help us to understand each other on a more human level. They help us to understand ourselves intrinsically, and they help us to build our dreams faster and stronger.
Amazing. Amazing. So, if someone is listening to this and is like, oh, snap, I should probably get some more insights on that trademark IP stuff that Shay was talking about, how could they find out more about you?
People can find out more about me and the work that I do on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Shay M. Lawson. You can find out about the work that my law firm does with intellectual property and transactional work for creatives at lawsonmckinley.com. We're also on LinkedIn as the law firm of Lawson McKinley.
Amazing. Well, I mean, everyone, this wasn't just like, oh, yeah, this is a nice little listen. This is potentially information that is going to save your business or save you a lot of trouble. What was it? Litigating in retrospect, something you said like that. So definitely want to thank you for coming onto the show today and hearing about how relationships are important in your day to day, how relationships are pivotal because we cannot do this by ourselves. Is just we need to hear that and we need to be reminded of that, I think. And so thank you all for listening to this episode. And as our Goodie Nation founder, Joey Womack, always says, stay magnetic and outwork yesterday. Bye bye.